The First Amendment to the Constitution begins, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." Historically, that first part, known as the Establishment Clause, was understood to mean that there should be no national denomination. But because of decades of some bad decisions by the Supreme Court, the false doctrine arose that somehow the Bible and Christian references in the public school were forbidden. Instead, there is a de facto religion in the schools. It's just not a biblical one that is involved. What follows are some comments about this from Judge Darrell White, head of the Judicial Alliance, David Gibbs III, founder and head of the National Center for Life and Liberty, and the late Dr. Walter Williams of George Mason University.
The non-theistic religion of secular humanism has come to be predominant. And so I've heard there are some who would argue that that needs to be brought out into the open, and there needs to be a full disclosure of those underlying principles concerning origin, purpose, and destiny in the science classroom, when discussing Darwinism, when discussing evolutionism, which is the only game in town in terms of the science textbooks, except in those jurisdictions that have adopted science academic freedom policies, which are very useful to give teachers a comfort level or a sense that they are protected by their school board if they want to discuss, or if a student wants to discuss. For example, Richard Dawkins being stumped by a question that was asked some time ago. Professor Dawkins, can you give an example of a genetic mutation or an evolutionary process which can be seen to increase the information in the genome? And if you go online and watch Dawkins stumped, well, he's dumbfounded. He doesn't have an answer to that question. He tries to give a non-responsive answer, but he is simply without words to describe that.
The Founding Fathers would never have agreed that a child should not pray in school. Now, we do need to, again, go back to historical context. There were no government schools when the Founding Fathers were framing this country. It was understood that education was in the purview of the parents and oftentimes in the purview of the churches. The old one-room schoolhouses that were established in certain areas, a lot of times were church-run, privately financed. There was not the government concept that the government will pay for and provide education. That was a later construct in our country that really became to dominate more in the early 1900s. And so it is important to remember the Founding Fathers wanted children exposed to what parents wanted them exposed to, what churches wanted them exposed to, values in education. But it's important to remember the Founding Fathers would not consider a man educated that didn't know the Bible. So if you didn't know the Bible, you weren't deemed as an educated person. If you look at the Northwest Ordinance, it's cited that one of the purposes of schools was to promote religion, which in that day was Christianity. So they wanted to promote Christianity, morality, and knowledge. Now, today, if you look at our schools, Christianity is being essentially banned or eliminated. Morality is largely gone or turned into anything goes. And knowledge is turned into almost rote memory to pass a test. And so our schools today don't reflect anything that our founders intended. It wasn't just to get people where they could know a few historical facts or know how to do some mathematical problems. The goal of education was to prepare a man for life, to prepare a lady to succeed in what they would be called to do. And tragically, we're not equipping the children today like our Founding Fathers intended. There is an unusual bizarrity in our government school system today. Children wonder whether they can even walk in with the Bible, whether they can invite their friends to church, whether they can pray, because they've heard about all these negative consequences if you express faith in the government schools. But then on the reverse side, a child can say, today I want to change my gender. I'm going to cross-dress. I'm going to wear different clothes. I want to go in a different bathroom. I want to be on a different sports team. I want you to call me by a different name. And oh, by the way, don't tell my parents, because this is my safe place and this is where I want to do this. And schools not only say that's okay, but they actually encourage it, train on it, and make sure children are fully aware of their options. So on one hand, we encourage incredible experimentation with things that could be very, very dangerous in the lives of these young people, and things that we have known for centuries, from even before the founding of our country. The good core values for successful citizenship are being squished down while we're on this grand social experiment where the more bizarre, it almost seems like, the more protected.
I think that the founding principles of the United States is being undermined by the educational establishment. That is, most of the people in the educational establishment, they're left-leaning people, and left-leaning people want to undermine the values of the Constitution, and it's not being taught in schools. That is, most youngsters know very, very little about the founding principles and even the history of our country.
How can we pass on to the next generation the truths about the settling and the founding of America if we ourselves don't learn them? That's why we do what we do at Providence Forum, so we help spread the word about the indispensable role the Bible and the Christian faith played in the founding of America. As Os Guinness once put it, the biblical concept of covenant gave rise to the American Constitution. That's just one example among many where the Scriptures played a key role in the creation of this great nation. May God help us to pass on our great legacy to future Americans. For Providence Forum, I'm Dr. Jerry Newcombe.